Hey everyone, welcome back to Permission to Shine, the podcast where we highlight the most humble, inspiring personal stories that I know you guys are going to love. It's Andrew Nemani, your host, and happy holidays to you and to yours. What a perfect time of year, right? And I'm going to try something new on the podcast, guys. I'm going to share a little bit about what's going on in my world, my thoughts, my views on previous guests, and just kind of the current state of the world, at least from my perspective. So we're going to do that. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are. I'm still trying to find my rhythm, right? This isn't perfect. This is episode 19. And so always love hearing your feedback. People have gotten really vocal on social media, on Instagram and through YouTube. People are giving their opinion and feedback, and I love seeing it. So if you want to voice your opinion, either on these intros, on a guest, previous guest, future potential guest, let me know. I'm always willing to engage and to hear your thoughts. I love that, and that means the world to me. I've been living in Los Angeles, guys, and I got to tell you, it has been amazing. Every morning, I walk out, I look up, see the blue sky, take a deep breath, and say, thank you for the opportunity to avoid winter. It's been so nice. I've been closer to work. I'm getting to extend my first offer of employment as a manager, bringing somebody on my team, so I'm really excited about that. Been doing a lot of workouts. I feel really good about how that's going. Got to be honest, not shining in the social media category. I've been on social media too much. I feel like it's draining me, and I feel I feel gross when I do it too much. So need to get away from that. Very excited for the holiday season. Look forward to hearing about what you guys are doing. I get to go over to Europe, going to London and Paris, and I'm super stoked. I get to take my parents for their first time ever to Europe. Can you believe that? I feel so lucky to have gotten to travel all over the place, and the fact that they've never been to Europe is crazy. I almost feel guilty about it. So taking them over there for Christmas, couldn't be more excited. Doing it with my sister and brother as well. A little family vacay to Europe for Christmas. Very excited about that. Guys, episode 19, Andrew Kenward. Super stoked to bring you guys this guest. He is the president of Almost Friday Media. It's a media organization that oversees companies like Friday Beers, which you may have heard of through Instagram. They have 18 million followers across all of their platforms. Again, that's 18 million followers. In today's world, that's a whole lot of value. Andrew's got an incredible story growing up in Miami, going to the University of Austin, Texas, Hook'em, and then on to University of Florida for law school, and has been living in Los Angeles now as an agent, pretty powerful agent that is, and then now getting to run Almost Friday Media as president. They've got this amazing office on Abbot Kinney in Venice, and really oversee some amazing things. I got to see the office, and it was so inspiring to see kind of the startup life, but they're in hyper growth, right? I don't even know if you can really call it a startup anymore, but to see the culture they have is a pretty special thing. So I think you're going to enjoy this episode with Andrew a lot. Hello from Los Angeles. I'm going to be thinking about you guys over the holiday season. Also, what happened to Christmas lights? Where did these things go? I remember as a kid, I dreamed of becoming rich so that I could pay for everybody in my town to get Christmas lights. I think there's still hope. Everyone, enjoy this episode with Andrew Kenward. Have a happy holiday season, and I will see you guys again in a couple weeks. Where did you grow up?
Grew up in Miami. Weird thing. My dad's a true Floridian, which for guys his age, or Miamian, is pretty rare.
Did he grow up there as well?
Yeah, so he was born there, grew up there.
What?
And my mom was born in New York, but her family moved to South Florida, Miami, when she was 6 months old. So she also grew up in Miami. It was really fun. I think a lot of people are always asked, man, what was it like? Was it weird growing up there? I think the perception of Miami is always this Vegas-y, South Beach is the only thing that exists there. And it's so much cooler, and there's so many amazing nooks and crannies of Miami that have a lot of soul. And not to say South Beach isn't fun or whatever, but it has its place in that ecosystem. But yeah, just the boating life, the getting out of the water on the weekends, these jungle-y little neighborhoods were the best, dude. And growing up there was super fun. But it is kind of that LA scene, I think, where you tend to do grow up a little faster, because you're 17 trying to get a fake ID, go out to South Beach, when you're a junior, senior, yeah, which was fun, but it gets you jaded on all that stuff a little bit faster.
Right.
It's probably a good thing, actually.
I think there's this learning curve with Miami. The front end, everyone goes there because they're there's no rules here. I party, maybe harder than I've ever partied somewhere. But then once you get past that, you discover this professional side where there's a lot of like really talented, smart people there, all gathered in one area.
Yeah, so many smart, I think young, hungry people have moved to that city. Yeah, kind of excited to see what comes out of it. I think there's like, this, in looking at it from afar, I'm like, yet to see like the full results, you know what I mean? Because like there was like the crypto boon and like a lot of the stuff that sometimes feels like a boondoggle, and I'm like, let's see what like shakes out in the wash here. But there's a lot of reasons to live there. It's like super fun, the weather's great, endless amounts of stuff to do,
the healthiest food.
Yeah, like, I mean, dude, great food, great like fitness culture too,
Yes.
And yeah, it's like people like to be outside and have fun. Like, you're gonna get a great like young, community there. So I dig it. I love going back there. Like, it's awesome having my family there, and I'm always going back for Christmas, New Year's. Like, idyllic time to be there. Sun's out, the weather's amazing. It feels like LA, and there's so much stuff going on. It's the best.
And then where did you go to college?
Went to the University of Texas.
Go Horns, huh?
Yeah, kind of like random. I had a college counselor who was like, you got to apply to University of Texas. Like, it like fits your like vibe. I feel like you would dig it. I had like applied, and I think I already gotten in, and I was like, all right, like, cool, like I should go check it out. And I had probably gotten in like maybe around like the holidays or shortly after the holidays, and they were playing USC. This was the Vince Young, win it at the end, running it in, like last minute play, like to basically shred USC in the Natty. I saw that and I was like, oh shit, like Texas on like this national stage, like this is epic. Set a time to go visit Austin, and like fell in love with Austin. Greatest city.
You have Austin vibes for sure.
Yeah, Austin was amazing.
Have you met McConaughey yet?
No, I have not.
That feels like a natural matchup that needs to happen.
I mean, yeah, we definitely like for Friday Beers used his image on endless amounts of like, content. Guys like the swaggiest dude on earth. I listened to his book Green Lights.
So good.
On Audible, and it was you like, that's one you like have to listen to it too. Yeah. Like, him reading it to you is it makes it's so amazing.
Yeah. What stood out about that book?
I mean, look, like, I also think it's a little ridiculous, Matthew McConaughey being like, oh, like, just go for it. It's like, yeah, dude, you're one of the most like charming, handsome guys on earth. Like, telling everyone just like, shoot your shot, like things will work out. Like, it's a good message, but it also is like super like, like, I don't know, siloed to his experience. I think like not everyone's gonna have like the insane outcome, but
didn't he like wave his wife over, like her future wife in the bar?
Yeah, you know what I mean, like all that shit. But I do agree, like the bias for action that guy had, and like kind of the, he set his eyes on something. He's like, all right, I want that, and he like at least took every step to go try and like knock that down. And like, I love that. I respect that, and definitely like something like I try to employ, and everything that I've tried to chase in my career and life and all that stuff.
So you went to Texas, and then what'd you do thereafter?
So at Texas,
I need the Andrew Kenward.
Yeah, that's really when I started working in like the entertainment industry. I was huge like music, nut in college. Was like, writing music blogs, and loved discovering new music. Austin had this amazing music scene, a lot of great like live music venues, and there's this company based out of Austin called C3 Presents, and I think Lance Armstrong was actually like one of like a co-founders in that business, but led by three guys all named Charlie, hence C3, and they built what was amazing independent like concert promotion company. So they put on Austin City Limits, they own Lollapalooza, and then all of the Lollapaloozas, now they're like in like
Argentina,
all these Chile and Europe, everywhere. They own some venues, so like I think in book venues, so like Stubbs was like one of theirs that they at least booked, and then they had some other venues that they booked and owned. And then they also did bookings for like a lot of casinos. So like casinos would hire them and be like, hey, like program out our, concert hall or whatever, right? So they would do that. They also had an artist management company. And I wanted to work there more than anything, like when I was in college. And I was in a fraternity. One of my fraternity brothers, this guy Brad, he was working there in the accounting department. And I was like, dude, I got to get in there. Like, I'll mow the lawn. Like, what do you need me to do?
How old are you at this time?
I'm probably 20.
Nice.
Yeah.
Freaking ready to grind.
Yeah. Trying to find a way in. I had done some other, crappy jobs in the entertainment business before that. Like I was like a PA on a film in like a small town outside of Austin that I'd have to like commute to, and made no money. I was like literally like clipping sides for actors, and realized I did not want to work in the movie business. It was just like not, I didn't like fall in love with like being in the movie set, and music at the time was really where I was just like all in on. So, I was dying to work at this like super cool company that had basically access so I can go to like all these like sweet shows and like festivals and stuff, and when I was kind of like, pretty relatively broke college kid. And he called me one day after, I just like annoyed Brad enough times. He's like, Charles Attal is moving into his like new lake house in like Lake Travis or whatever, and he needs like some help like moving in. Like, would you want to like help him move in?
He's one of the 3 C's.
One of the 3 C's, one of the 3 Charlies. And I was like, yes, like absolutely, like this is my shot.
You're gonna help him move into his house as your first interview?
Yeah. Well, he was gonna pay us, which was also kind of sick. So I probably made like a couple $100 or whatever, like lugging furniture around. So
that's epic.
Yeah. So I went with Brad, and like it was me and maybe like one other guy or like 2 other guys, and I think like the other people like already worked there, like there are other like intern young dudes.
You're getting groomed.
Yeah, but it was great, dude. And like kind of like waited the end of the day to like shoot my shot and be like, hey, Charles, like I've actually applied to an internship and never heard back. Like, can you like, help me like, find my way through the system, whatever. And he's like, yeah, come by my office like Tuesday. And like that was sort of my foot in the door, like my first, I'd say like very like legitimate entertainment job, as like a 20-year-old. And dude, that job was the best. It was so much fun. Like I worked the next ACL, Austin City Limits, which
that they owned.
So they owned it. Yeah, they owned it, produced it. Yeah, I remember my job. I was like basically a golf cart gopher for this like incredibly wealthy attorney who had bought these like mega VIP passes where you basically had your own personal like golf cart chauffeur. You could like walk on stage at any show you wanted to go to. And I was just driving those guys around, like grabbing them beers and, hanging out. And it's pretty sick. The guy tipped me $1,000 at the end of the month, or the end of the weekend for driving around in a golf cart.
My goodness.
Yeah.
20 years old.
It was epic.
You were on top of the world. You were McConaughey at the moment.
Yeah, I was. It felt like that. I probably spent it so fast, by the way.
When you were shooting your shot with Charlie at his house, were you nervous as hell?
Yeah, I was. I was super nervous before I asked him. I was like, how do I bring this up, like without trying to feel like, I'm like cornering him or whatever. But I kind of just like waited at the end of the day, like put in the hard work, and like showed him like, I'm not just like a slouch, like looking for him to like plug me in,
Yeah.
And but yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking for sure. I was in a fraternity, like I said, and we had like our own little spring kind of like festival. Texas, they call it Roundup. So it's actually a lot of like high school kids like come up and like check out the school, and all the different fraternities, sororities like have events and invite people to like check out campus. And, it's kind of like a rush event at the same time. But we would book a concert. So I think we did the Cool Kids one year. So like, I don't know if you remember them, but they're a cool like hip hop group from like this era of when I was in college. And that was my own like experience, like just like kind of like independently having to like reach out to an agent and broker a deal. And like, what was it like to like book and, kind of throw our own event and concert and then go out and get sponsorship and sell tickets and do that whole thing. I was like super all in on the, music concert business. I thought I was going to be a music agent. I wanted to go work out in LA at like a William Morris agency at the time. and was trying to find my way there. But this was all happening kind of like I was graduating college, or like at my tail end of college, like right when the recession really like was in full force.
Just love that time.
And it was just a mess, like out there. And I was like, you know what? I think rather than try and like force this move to LA, it's like so uncertain, and it's like a nightmare time for like job hunting. Like maybe I should just invest in myself. I was like, decided to go to law school. Yeah, I ended up going to University of Florida for law school after I graduated.
You had to make mom and dad happy at some point. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, it was good. I was also, I mean, I was pretty bummed actually at first, like having to leave Texas and like go to like Gainesville, Florida, which I sort of knew, but only knew through the like lens of my parents. Oh, you're like bummed all your friends are like moving to New York or whatever. I'm in like kind of like northern central Florida and like a swamp, like having to like read 200 pages of law every day. Like I was like, this is a little bit of a shell shock situation, but ended up being one of the best, things I could have ever done. Like one, I'd say just like a legal, like law school education is like super, super powerful. And not just from like, the ability to, if you want to go practice law, like obviously critical, you have to do that. But I just mean from like a critical thinking, like logical, like, thought process. It is so powerful, and I use it every day for sure. And I knew if I was going to go be an agent, I'd be negotiating against, attorneys and the business affairs folks at studios or, wherever, right? Like most of the people I'd probably be engaging with as far as like in negotiation front would be, attorney minds, and like you'd be severely disadvantaged, I think, like not to have that.
Yeah, right.
And, like there's just this like legal thought process of like how to approach problems and sort of like try and like see around corners before you get there, and like walk yourself down like, well, what if this happens? It's like a lot of like what ifs, but I think it really helps you like making decisions, particularly when you're now I'm working at a startup and like everything's a big experiment, so you like kind of want to have like the thought experiment before you just like jump into things a lot. And yeah, I kept working when I was in law school too, so they don't let you work your first year, but my second year of law school kind of also got lucky. There was this company called Groove Shark. I don't know if you remember them.
Yes.
Heard of them? Kind of like called like a shitty Spotify. They were like, very bootleg, like didn't have any real, they had like some, maybe small licensing deals with like a couple of the record labels, but like not the big ones. That was my first lens into like startup life and like startup culture. That was really fun and kind of an illuminating experience. And like you get to see, people make good decisions, bad decisions, like working at a startup, which I think the best analogy or way to think about a startup is it's like truly just a big science experiment. You're testing and trying new things and seeing what works and leading into that. And it was super illuminating to see like how that all worked. And especially at a place that was run by, I think the founder was like, the two co-founders, like 26 and 24.
I have so much admiration for that.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
It was really hard. And look, I saw, like the company failed. After I left, I ended up getting an internship at now WME, William Morris agency. I'd merged with Endeavor and all this stuff. So I was able to get an internship at WME after my...
real quick for context, people who might not know what that is.
Yeah.
Can you explain that real quick?
Yeah. So WME is, now it's beyond just a talent agency. At that point, it was just William Morris Endeavor talent agency, but it's one of the largest talent agencies on earth. Now it's part of like even a larger kind of like media conglomerate called Endeavor that does a ton of different things. That sort of, I got to see like really like come together. Like while I was there, I ended up working at WME for 8 years. It was awesome to go work there. I got to be like a fly on the wall and just like sort of like shadow people while they were assistants, working for agents, and sit on their desk and like see what they were doing all day.
8 years is a long time.
Yeah, 8 years is a long time.
Who are some of like the clients that WME would represent?
Oh, I mean, like, these were not my clients, but like, The Rock, like the Ryan Reynolds, Halle Berry, like the biggest people on planet Earth, like from a traditional media sense, and then also like the biggest like creators on Earth too. So like, if you're like a gamer, like Markiplier, or like people in podcasting, they've done a really good job, I think, of like seeing where media is going and making sure they were building teams and departments to like service those industries. But yeah, they rep actors, musicians. They have an entire music department representing everyone from the biggest DJs on earth, like Deadmau5 or whatever, to like legacy rock bands and Slash, or everyone is up for grabs by like a WME or like a CAA type place. Like those are the two biggest talent agencies on earth.
Yeah. What's a talent agent do? Like, if you had to just like simplify their responsibilities.
First, people always ask this, like, what's the difference between like an agent and a manager? And like sometimes there's not much. I think like really when it comes down to it, though, like an agent is certainly more responsible for like generating business and revenue, right? Like I saw my job as like, okay, you got to go out and be like fishing for, you got to have like a zillion lines in the water and like see where you can go find money for these people. You still have to be sort of a strategist and think about the long-term, consequences of doing like this movie or playing that venue versus this one, and managing relationships and all that stuff that goes with like decisions in a business that's like as personal as like the talent business, because it's like literally about that person. But
got to be able to see around corners.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you want to know, like, oh, if like we go, we do this movie with this producer, their next film is this thing with that director, and you want to work with that guy. Like there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, rather than just like, oh, you make $1 million for this film, like, or this TV show, or that, concert or whatever. Like we should do that because this one's paying you more than the one that's for $750,000 or whatever it is, right? But it's incredibly nuanced. There's so many like subtle relationships and things that have to be managed when you're in that business.
Sounds exhausting.
Yeah, it's exhausting, but it's it's fun and it's exciting. And like I was always excited about working in media because one, I like the idea of being able to like kind of like touch or influence like culture, and I thought I always had like pretty good taste, or like I trusted my taste as far as like music or comedy, and in certain sectors, like there's also things that I'm just like definitely not a pro at, right? But I'm also not a creator. Like I couldn't like make any of it. Like I'm not a like inherently creative person in that regard, but like I do think I have a good sensibility for what can be good and what can work.
That's your superpower, man.
Yeah, it was good.
That shine.
It was good. I ended up working in our unscripted TV group after I had a meeting with my friend Matthew, sort of like broke down like what it was like, and he was so passionate about it. He loved it, and it was great because the the department, more than I think most at the company, allowed for you to really almost be like a producer inside the agency. So if you think about like if you represent Chris Nolan or like Martin Scorsese and like motion picture lit, or any director for that matter, it's like, or writer, it's like they come to you with a project and it's your job to sort of just like go like sell that, right? Like create the market, go to the different studios, and you're just sort of like presenting this thing. You may go help and package in other elements and find an actor who that really they really want or whatever, but the reality is like Martin Scorsese wants anyone in the world, right? They'll be able to go get them, and kind of like what they call like package that project together and then go take it out and sell it, right? And like get it made. The unscripted TV group was, I thought, like way more kind of like wild and loose. And you as an agent could be like, oh, I represent this guy that's like, I don't know, like kind of this like, I don't know, West Coast Customs, like car dude, you know what I mean? And like, let's partner him with this production company who's done like home run stuff before, but they understand that sort of like format. And then you like have them go create an idea together. They come back to you, and then you're able to go out and like pitch the Netflixes and, any of the different networks at the time. And I really liked that because it felt like very like producerial. And I think that helped shape like, you know, my mindset now around like this like next wave of like content world that we're in, where like, you know, it's very much like, as long if you build it and put it out in the world and it's good, like it will find audience. You know, you just have to like, kind of know how to like assemble these projects from the beginning. What's been really like kind of fun and how I like translated, I'd say, that experience from, you know, working at WME to what I do now. Yeah, it's just been, you know, a bit of a whirlwind time to be working in media, because you're seeing like kind of the denigration of cable, like, you know, it's starting to really pick up, where I think it's going to be like completely eviscerated in, you know, pretty short time here. And how the streaming landscape has like changed the way people are selling in TV. And it's just, you know, it's pretty tumultuous time to be navigating all that stuff, but there's also obviously a ton of opportunity that comes with it. And like platforms like TikTok and Instagram and YouTube like allow people like us to now just go out and make stuff, and if it's good, it finds an audience, you know, and then we have to build the whole like little ecosystem around it to go, you know, make it a sustainable business. But we've been, you know, lucky enough to be able to do that over the last couple of years. But
That's so cool, man.
it's been fun. It's definitely
What
exhausting.
a ride.
Yeah.
Miami to Austin to Gainesville.
Yeah.
And then you've been in
LA.
LA, and then LA.
Yeah, so I've been
What
in LA
years?
for 10 years.
Wow.
Worked at WME for 8 years.
Yeah. What pulled you out of there?
It was COVID, right? So, I mean, that's not why I left, but it was like when I left was COVID. It was like, you know, dark time to be working anywhere. Like people were getting fired and leaving, and like,
Wild.
you know, it's like, this is kind of nuts. The other thing is like, you know, there's like something about when you like drive in to Beverly Hills and like pull in the parking garage of William Morris Endeavor, this like literally entertainment company that's been around since like 1800s, you know, like is when William Morris Agency started. And there's this huge building and there's the like logo on the wall, and like parking lot is filled with like Porsches and Ferraris and stuff. And you're like, you feel like, wow, like this building, and like means a lot, and it does mean a lot. But there's also something about spending the next like 2 years in your apartment alone with your cell phone and computer, and like people are answering your phone call, like people are, you know, like you don't have your assistant there, like it's just kind of like you and your phone, your computer, and like you realize like, oh, these relationships that I built over the last, you know, 8 years or whatever, 6 years being here are yours. They're not WME's. Now, when you like, I cannot express how crucial it was to like have WME to like give you the opportunity to make those relationships and
Open
like,
the door.
open the door for like, you know, those like first 8 years of my career. But I felt like, you know, you start to see like, oh, there's like a confidence like in like, you know, now people know who you are, you know, kind of thing. At least like in the industry, and it's like, oh, these are small worlds, you know, and like, as long as someone is willing to pick up your phone call, like, you know, like that's kind of the most important thing.
Yeah.
So you know, you're like sensing that a little bit, or at least it's like in your mind, right? Like that weight of like the pulling into the garage kind of like goes away a little bit. I, you know, was on a call actually with Jack Barrett, who's co-founder of Friday Beers and my business partner, and we were talking to like the.
How did you know him?
So I signed Friday Beers. Actually, you know, I had kind of like from a couple angles, like you know, it feels like these are how things like always like or feel like they're meant to be or whatever. But like, I originally got sent the first, I think it was the first Friday Beers video ever was sent to me from my client, this guy Doug Banker, who is a producer. He sent me this video. He's like, yo, check this out. This thing's hilarious. I'm like, yes, this is hilarious. But it's like this like text tracking like meme video of Austin Powers like turning the corner, you know, and I think it said like Friday Beers, and it was like the fellas behind him or something. And I was like, this is actually super funny. But I'm like, what do you do with this? I don't know what you do with this, you know? They had 5,000 followers at the time. This was November 2019. I go away for the holidays, come back. I get a phone call from my colleague, this guy, Ryan McNeely, who's an agent at WME still. And he's like, hey, my younger brother was the pledge trainer of this guy at Dartmouth who started this thing called Friday Beers. Like, if anyone would know what this is, like, it'd be you, you know? And he's like, you want to check it out? I was like, yeah, let's, I was like, actually, I have seen it. Doug Banker sent it to me. Like, let's see what they're doing. I pulled it up and they had like 250,000 followers. So it was like probably like 6 weeks later or 8 weeks later.
Jeez.
So it clearly like caught on. I'm like, oh wow, like something's going on here. Set up a phone call. My other friend Drew that I had worked with at WME was on the call and was like either managing them or was thinking about managing them or, you know, starting to manage them. So I was like, okay, like, you know, this is like, it feels like something we should have a serious conversation about. And they were like, yeah, like we said we wanted to, like, you know, we promised each other we'd write a script a month and then, you know, we'll start this thing Friday Beers to kind of just like take jokes that would, like, you know, theoretically type a joke that would exist in a script that we'd write and put it on the internet, right? And like short form, you know, popcorn consumption vibes. So I was like, guys, like, if you want to be writers, like, I'm probably not the right fit for you. I never like represented writers, but, you know, it feels like there's like a seedling of what could be like a media hub here, like a, you know, like a media company. And they agreed, and they actually put together like an incredibly thoughtful presentation that is like very much like, you know, what we've been working on building now, which is like other accounts and podcasts and TV and, you know, merchandise and working with brands and, you know, CPG products and all that sort of stuff, right? And like that, like we all sort of saw that, you know, but it was like awesome to have it down on paper. They, like, you know, I think had a really strong vision of what this could become. And the next 18 months, I just was their agent, you know, at WME. We didn't know COVID was coming at this point. And then 3 months later, it was like everyone was like locked down, working from home. And I think that afforded them also more opportunity to like lean into Friday Beers. And then
we all needed just something to distract our minds.
Yeah. And then Friday Beers, I think, was also this like place on the internet that, you know, allowed people to sort of like feel those feelings of like being out with their friends and like socializing, you know, when at a time where they couldn't.
Yeah.
And it just went nuts. I mean, they grew to 1 million followers, and by like, I think August of that year.
Which platform?
Instagram. Jack, mentioned on a call, he's like, look, like, I think we're at a point now. This is probably like May of 21, where we want to like see if we can like go raise some money and like really turn this into a media company. And it was like, I think on a whole team call. So there was like other agents that I worked with, you know, I was sort of like the point guy, but you build out teams of people, different specialties and stuff like that. And they said, you know, do you know somebody, or would you have any recommendations of like someone who can come on, like help build this thing, like, you know, with me, like looking for to hire like, you know, head of biz dev type guy or whatever. I sort of just like, I didn't really even like think about it that much. I just like, when we hung up that group call, I called him right back and I was like, dude, I would be like open to that job if it was like the right role and like the right job. And we sort of like, not slowly, like pretty quickly started to like lay out like what that would look like, and for me to come over and, you know, like be a partner in the business with that. I couldn't stomach the thought of like having to like call Jack and Max and Sam or whatever and like pick up the phone and like talk to the other guy that they hired, you know, for that job, and like not have like given it a shot to go be a part of it. And yeah, man, it was it's been awesome. I mean, it's been probably the most you know, one exhausting like couple of years, like getting a startup going with these guys. Like, you know, we were working out of a townhouse in Venice for a while there, and it was just like we were so on top of each other. It was like, you know, 7 people and 12 people, and then like, you know, we moved to this cool office space in Abbot Kinney, and now we're like over 30 people, and, you know, have a amazing network of like content creators and like also just an amazing team. You know, head of sales, Casey Murphy, former Barstool, Jacob Selzer was working at Wave and NBC Sports, and oversees our sports accounts. Armand Walia was at, Bleacher Report and Complex, and we're like getting really great, but like, I think the guys that were like the young guys at those places, and now they get to be like the senior guys at this place. And
That's
like,
cool.
But we're all, early 30s. Like, I'm the oldest guy at the place. I'm 36.
You're Papa Bear, huh?
Yeah.
How many direct reports do you have?
I mean,
Is it structured that way or not really?
kind of like, I'd say like it's probably like 4, but it's a pretty, condensed, I'd say, like, workplace. Like, we all are working incredibly close together.
So on LinkedIn, you call it president and COO.
Yeah.
But in the office, it's, I'm sure, everything, huh?
Yeah. I'd say the titles definitely, I think help, definitely when talking like externally, you know what I mean? Like make sense of it. But, I think there's like a decent enough structure, but we're such a like content creation heavy, machine. Like, I just put a report together for, our investors for the third quarter. And I think we made 17,000 pieces of content in Q3.
Oh my gosh. How many brands do you guys have underneath you?
So like, brands plus like content creators is like around 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like people underestimate the amount of money that can be generated through social media and brands nowadays. Like, can you just give an example of like maybe what a post could earn? Like, even not yours specifically, but maybe just some like standard metrics.
Yeah. The way that these are built out, right? These campaigns, like typically off of like a CPM. So, it depends on how kind of, let's call it creatively, like taxing some of the content is. Like, selling a meme is not the same as selling a sketch on Instagram, which is not the same as selling like a kind of highly produced like YouTube video, right? But you're selling it based off of a factor of how much you could charge for 1,000 views. So that can range anywhere on like the low end, like super low end, $10, right? $5-10 if it's like a meme post on a smaller page or something per 1,000 views, up to $100 if it's like kind of bespoke made, highly produced content that's getting a lot of views on YouTube and has longer form viewership, like where like you're really captured someone's attention, so podcast reads, right? Like those tend to be in the range of $25-35.
So $30 for every 1,000 views that you're getting.
Yeah. So if you think about, we can do the math, but I'm like, if you did 1 million views, right, or 1 million listens on a podcast at a $30 read, I think that is $30,000
for one podcast episode.
Yeah.
So this podcast wouldn't be complete if we didn't talk about Empty Netters and the iconic Chris and Dan Powers.
Yeah.
One of you,
legendary.
One of the brands that's under
Almost Friday. Yeah. Almost Friday Media is really like the kind of umbrella brand, and Friday Beers is the one that's sort of, the brand that started it all. But
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. What was it about Chris and Dan that stood out to you so much?
Yeah, that came through actually another former colleague of mine at WME, rep Chris and Dan, who are also incredibly talented, like screenwriters. These guys have like sold a bunch of movies and stuff, and they were like, I think, making some funny skits.
Backyard skits
during COVID. And my buddy called me. He's like, hey, you have to meet Chris and Dan. They're like these great writers, super funny guys, and they're also like total hockey bros. And I played ice hockey. I love hockey, which is weird for being from Miami, but love hockey. And we had an account at the time called Friday Beers Canada, which was just like, it made no sense. It made no sense at all to have this page. It was like a watered down version of Friday Beers, but just with like Canadian movie references or like comedians like featured. It was weird. So I was like, what if we took that page and converted it into like a hockey page? Because I knew that Friday Beers audience like over-indexed with hockey fans. And we're like, why don't we have like Chris and Dan like kind of just, make memes for it, and they can kind of comment on what's happening in the hockey world, and let's see if we can grow this page. So like at first they were just sort of like behind the scenes, and hockey season was starting, and Jack really encouraged them, who's our CEO, to start a podcast. And
It's so good.
It's so good. I mean, these guys know so much about hockey. They played pretty elite level.
Growing up in Maine.
Yeah, growing up in Maine.
Their dad was a Norwegian hockey coach, wasn't he?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's epic.
I went to a LA Kings game with them last week.
Oh, really?
And got the lowdown.
They just started producing this podcast. We had a studio, let them go, and like they've really honed it in, and they're amazing. And now they're creating all this content that they are, the centerpiece of. And that was really our thesis, was sort of taking these pages that started as meme pages and bringing in talent to be really like the centerpiece of them all. And that's how we found Will Angus and Liam Cullen. Like Max Barrett found them doing just sketch comedy on TikTok, and they were super funny. And we brought them in, and we're able to sort of start sharing them on Friday Beers and moving audience over, and people like started to really like them. We found Billy and Chet, brought them in. Rusty Featherstone, the guy's famous for ranking beers. And yeah, now we have this like amazing like kind of motley crew of, in-house comedians and like then sports content creators. So like Will Donnellan just is another amazing sketch comic and comic that started with us.
How many followers do you have across all platforms?
We're probably close to 18 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, it's crazy seeing Chris and Dan and being at the LA Kings game with them, and seeing random people approach them and how thrilled they were to like meet them and just be hanging out. And Dan and Chris were so humble, so approachable, so cool. It was a powerful moment. Like, you guys are really making a difference and making this media like, or the sports in their case with Empty Netter, is like approachable, right? For so many people.
Yeah. I think like, we started this year actually like defining our mission statement as a company, and kind of distilled it down to, it was like very simple. It was just be relatable, build community. And like
they did, that was a full display the other night.
Yeah. And it's remarkable, because I was with Dan and Chris at some of the Stanley Cup Finals games, and like walking around that arena in South Florida, kids are stopping them, want to take pictures. Like, it's amazing. And like, hockey is like fairly niche, but their podcast is like not even, just now like a year old, right? And like they've reached a ton of people. It's awesome. And like, it's certainly just the beginning for them. But we've been doing this college football tour this fall, sponsored by Voodoo Ranger, best IPA in the biz. But they, these guys, like our comics, will be walking around these college towns, and like, you can't go 15 feet without someone being like, Rusty, Will, oh my God, can I take a picture? Like, it's remarkable. I mean, it's a testament. These guys are all super funny and, know their stuff, and, they work super hard. They're making a ton of content. Like I said, 17,000 posts in the last 3 months. It's a lot.
Man, it's so fun to hear your story, and how just like, it feels like you've trusted your gut and you've just gone for it in some opportunities, and like created these opportunities for yourself in a way, which I think is super cool. So it's fun to hear about those highs. I'm curious, when you think about a moment where life was really tough, and like maybe you're just like anxious on a daily basis, and you're like, shit, like things are tough right now. What comes to mind?
Yeah, I'd say there's two things. I'd say what was good is also, look, I've really only in my career, I guess, had two kind of jobs, right? But I'd say two moments I felt a lot of pressure. One was when I went to go first work for Patrick Weitzel. Like, you're now going to go be the assistant to the co-CEO of this company that you've been at for like 3 years or whatever. It's like very nerve-wracking, and also like exhausting. Like, that guy's life, at least at the time, was like so much travel. If he's in Europe, like you're up in the middle of the night, like, they're coordinating all this stuff. Like, it was very much a 24/7 job. And there's like a period of time where you're like, can I do this? Like, am I equipped to do this? Like, because it is, it's a lot, right? And you're not only having to like, just like, it's not like, oh, you just have to kind of like go through the motions of like being awake at 2 a.m. and like press this button. It's like, you got to kind of be thinking and like making sure everything's going smoothly, right? So that was super stressful. And I think it took a few months of just like, just keep going, just keep going, just keep going, to a point where you're like, okay, like you felt comfortable and like get your feet beneath you. And then the second time I felt like that was when I got promoted to agent. So, I'd worked in the music department, then unscripted TV, then I worked for Patrick, who's sort of like outside of all of it. I mean, he's a talent agent, originally, but like his role at WME Endeavor was like way beyond that at the time I was working for him. He still did a lot of that business, but like he was more overseeing like our next like big, acquisition or merger or whatever, right? Like buying UFC or, getting rid of like divesting of some business that, we didn't need anymore or whatever. So completely different like view of the landscape. And then I got promoted as an agent in our digital media group, which was also like fledgling and not a lot of structure and really young, and which made it exciting. But there wasn't like I wake up on Monday, like, here, work on this today. Like there wasn't like stuff like rolling downhill like there would be in some of the bigger, more, established departments in the agency. So I, probably woke up for the first 6 months every day of that job being like, I have nothing to do today. Like, I'm a loser. I'm an absolute loser. Like, I don't know where to even begin. But, you kind of just like pick up the phone and like make the phone call and,
build momentum, right?
Yeah. You just like, I think it's the critical thing is just having like a bias for action, and just like not getting your heads around, walk into someone's office. How can I help? Like any of that stuff. Like, and once things get started, it's just like, then all of a sudden you have like more than you could ever want to take on, you're busy and tired. Right.
Right.
But yeah, there was a ton of anxiety, for me, and I'm kind of like an anxious person. But when I first started out as an agent with like kind of, not a super solidified roadmap of like what I was going to do, they're kind of like, yeah, like go make this place money, go.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. But it, I think that was another just like good lesson. I think I've realized I've always had the most sort of growth and, in those moments where you felt wildly uncomfortable and sort of like out of your depth and like tossed in the deep end. And you have to kind of stretch through those and I've experienced a lot of that too, now working in this like startup media company that is Almost Friday Media. But I definitely felt pretty prepared and more prepared for those moments of like uncertainty or feeling uncomfortable, because I had them earlier on a few times, like when I was working in the agency. And
you'd been in the arena already.
Yeah.
It's familiar to you.
It's a different arena, but like the feeling in your stomach where you get nervous is the same.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, this is a little familiar. Like you'll feel fine eventually.
Yeah. I think that's really helpful to hear. I know for me, especially. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I'm curious what younger Andrew would think about everything that you've accomplished up to this point of your young career.
Yeah, he'd probably think it's pretty rad. I think he'd probably think I'd be more excited to go to these like college football party weekends, like, because it's obviously it's super fun and I do enjoy them, but it is like very much work. Like, now I'm much more excited to like probably like chill out and like, go to the beach with my wife on a Saturday than be like partying with frat kids in Gainesville on a Saturday. But it is very much where like our bread is buttered as a company, and like, so you'd probably be disappointed that I don't think it's as, fun as, like it seems in theory.
Isn't it funny how we dream of these things and these opportunities?
Yeah.
And when you do it, you're like, oh, it's not.
Oh, it is work,
Yeah,
but
right.
no, it's awesome. Like,
It's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. That I think is also weighs heavy, right? Is like, we have an incredibly young team. So, you do have to really like make sure people are doing their jobs and being on top of them. And everyone's like really good and responsible, but it can, especially in a situation like that,
Yeah.
can easily go off the rails if like people are not really, dialed in and know that you're there, like making sure everything's running smoothly. I think, yeah, you'd be like happy and proud, but I think also like a little bit like at least of a reality check of like, oh, is this still a job? And like, you know, you got to take it seriously. It's not all just like getting to slam Coors Lights and, you know, go to a party and a football game.
Right. Andrew, thank you for coming on, man. It's been awesome to hear your story and insights. And I mean, 18 million followers is no joke. So congratulations on what you guys are building. And I can't wait to continue following along.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate you having me, man. This was a ton of fun.
Anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
No, man. I think just keep an eye out for all the stuff that we're making. And, you know, if you're going to go check out like one thing we've been doing, I want to recommend our YouTube channel, Almost Friday TV. The stuff that team is making, led by this guy, Tyler Falbo, and then the rest of the comedians that work for us is just phenomenal. And some of the most, like, I think, creative stuff that's on the platform. So go give that a look.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, dude.
That's it. Thank you so much for tuning in to Permission to Shine, the podcast dedicated to sharing the most humble, inspiring stories that I know you will love. Again, this is Andrew Nemani. I appreciate you tuning in. As always, please reach out. Please follow on Instagram, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, Spotify, Apple. Leave us your thoughts. Let us know who you want as a future guest or what's your takeaways from this conversation. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great, great week.